Let's stay with this issue. The National SAPS Commissioner, Fani Masemola, says extortion crimes are underreported, as you've just heard from our reporter as well. To talk to us more about the impact of extortion and how it should be dealt with, we're joined this afternoon by Professor Jacob Mofokeng, who is a security analyst at the Tshwane University of Technology. Prof, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. And I'll put this question to you. Police say they're aware of rising cases of extortion. It's probably the biggest ballooning issue insofar as crime is concerned in the country at the moment. And they report some success in dealing with the issue. How do you gauge the success of dealing with extortion-related matters when it's very clear that the numbers are a guess at best?
Good afternoon, Michelle, and Newzroom Afrika viewers. Well, we are not sure in terms of what Commissioner alluded to indicate that there's been a success, when actually we hear every day, even the stories that you are addressing now, about how communities are, literally paralyzed by the acts of extortions, in some of the provinces, including the Eastern Cape. So we are aware that in South Africa, both businesses as well as normal households, they become victims of various forms of extortions. And many others live off and benefit from them. And they are aware of the lack of capacity, from crime intelligence, but also they are making use of that particular space where technology, is also being utilized by them. We are now talking about such, tools within South African Police Service, within crime intelligence, within the Hawks, whereby they need to be able to mobilize. We are talking now about a call center that has been established, but the analysis of such, then it points to a fact that it could mean that, some of these extortionists, they are utilizing it to frustrate those who made up, this particular tool so that it can be an enabler to inform the crime intelligence in terms of what is happening, as well as community members to report such. But there's not such success. The police can make mention of, try to increase the hope of the communities to say that at least they are doing something, but they are not. The wave of this particular crime, including that of construction mafia, still prevailing. And then the threats of violence and the fear provoked by extortion make it a criminal activity that is rarely reported, as you have just mentioned, because they don't report it. They cannot trust the system. We still need to, the criminal justice system, the police, and the minister, including the commission, has to really, prove to the communities that if they come forward to report these people, these people will not be able to trace them, and then they will be convicted. Such, we have seen the observation that in South Africa, people are getting arrested, but there is no such conviction. And in this area, every person, as I indicated, is now a victim of extortion, most part.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, residents there telling us exactly that. The issue is not with arrests, but indeed with convictions. Professor Mofokeng, there is surely an environment, a particular kind of environment that allows extortion rackets to thrive. And it's clear now that that environment exists in many parts of the country.
Yes, there is that environment where, fear, threats, intimidation, and aggression are recurrent elements that characterize an extortion, which will always seek to obtain a wrongful benefit. We see that how they, exert a particular pressure, within a particular time to say that if then you do not do such things, we demand it, then this will happen. And most times, these people, they are able to follow through, their threats before the police could be able to intervene, or where, as such cases are reported, where criminal intelligence could maybe, try to inform the activities of the police to be able to arrest, such persons. So it creates an environment where, these people will say that, we will carry through the threats, and if then you do not comply, then you will suffer major loss. I remember then how they use pressure so that within a particular time, then you will have to be able to comply. Otherwise, either they will kill or they will even, burn down the structure, whether it's your business, whether it's your home, even they will even kill your family members. So this is a, atmosphere where now we are operating in, where, we hear, stories about the lack of police investigators that, daily or monthly, we lose, excessive number of those that are experienced. Now, these people, they are aware of this, what is happening within law enforcement, about how unstable, South African police service is, and whenever they are now exerting this kind of pressure, where there is a inadequate awareness from, relevant stakeholders to inform community members that, a tool has been provided that you need to be able to report this acts of extortion, but then the communities are not really sure, that how effective, is a law enforcement agencies to be able to follow through in terms of the prosecution of such.
Yeah, it sounds like intelligence will be a huge part of how we tackle cases of extortion around the country. It's now been a month since the SAPS deployed Special Agents to Mthatha. That's the scene of the protest action that's happening this afternoon. What is the kind of intelligence that needs to be gathered to try and bring extortion issues to a head?
Well, it has to be, firstly, we have to separate, professionals, from criminal imitators. So it is the function of the criminal intelligence to be able to know who are the, imitators of those that seem to be executing such activities. So firstly, for any, entry, intelligence or police-led, investigation, members of the communities need to work together with law enforcement agencies. It is there for the police commissioner as well as the minister, to deal with the issues that communities have been crying about of, police officials who are being compromised. So they have to fix up that particular system. And then they have to grow the benefit, the hope as well as the confidence of communities to say that, we are realizing that we are under siege within this particular region, and then how can we work together? Because if then communities are coming forth to be able to report such threats, then it is for the crime intelligence to be able to sift between professionals as well as imitators, because the imitators are looking, at what is being reported. They are watching television as we are talking now, and then they see that, okay, then we can also do that and then go away with whatever that we are doing. It is for the function of the crime intelligence that to be able to infiltrate, communities. But you see the crime intelligence that is not really functional, where we, we are hearing stories that, for informer to be able to, function, then they are paying around a region of 3,000 for whatever reasons, whether that those people that come forth to be able to risk their lives, will they allow themselves to be exposed to any possible danger of their lives to come, and report such crimes. But we are saying that it is not about, money, but it's about civic duties. So that they can be able to know what are they dealing with. Are they dealing with the international criminal networks, of which now it has become a trend that South African criminal networks, gangsterism, they are now joining hands with the international players, into South Africa. So they also need to be able to be aware of the criminal imitators, that the emergence of groups, posing as, gang members and the impunity of crime, within these regions, it is something that criminal intelligence should supposed to be able to assess, to say that, these are the ones that are using, opportunities, because they are aware that, crime intelligence. There is a lack of, criminal investigators to be able to follow through these particular cases. So it is that kind of analysis that we expect. We know that, recently it has been allocated around the region of 4.7 or, billion crime intelligence to be able to enhance and raise the stocks. But it is always a challenge to see where does that particular amount of money is going, because we really don't see, crime intelligence. Although, in some of the reports, the police commissioner will say that it was a collaboration of crime intelligence, but the emergence of the threats of crimes as well as the wave of crime in South Africa, it does not really bring much confidence to say that indeed crime intelligence is doing its work. Remember, the police can only go to a particular, it doesn't help, for deployment of law enforcement to man particular area, because then you displace crime. They will go to another province. It is the function of the crime intelligence, the Hawks, as well as other task teams to be able to counteract, the particular incidents, especially of professionals.
Prof, the issue of the prank calls that were made to the hotline, the extortion hotline that was established. There were about 1,000 calls made to that hotline, and the vast majority of those calls turned out to be prank calls. I suppose, when we talk about how we gauge the success of measures of this nature, part of that discussion is perhaps the trust deficit that exists between the community and police. Is there enough trust there from the community and faith in police that they can get to the bottom of this issue?
Well, it's something that the government, as well as other, joint efforts, needs to be beefed up to be able to, to increase the confidence, that social cohesion, between the police as well as other actors, namely the communities as well as, private sectors, civil, societies, to be able to work with the police. But in a case where we see that, many calls are pranked, it just, people are sending a message that, we don't trust whatever that you are doing. Considering that not every, cell, SIM card is registered and you can obtain a SIM card everywhere and make use of it. That shows that, the extent at which government is really not really prepared to regulate, the use of cell phones, technology, mobile phones, and other things to be able to really fight these kinds of, criminal networks. So as long as people will go there and buy SIM cards, as well as people will send, prank calls, it undermines the agency as well as the seriousness of these particular threats that are facing us in many provinces in South Africa. Yep. It says to us that they don't trust, whatever that is there. It could also be the same criminal networks that are making mockery of this particular establishment to indicate that, we are aware of what we are doing and we want to frustrate you. So it has to really be the government together with the private sectors. We should really come to a point where no one can operate, and make calls without that particular SIM card, being registered. As long as we are dealing with such things and we can be able to handle such things, we know that, it could also affect tourism, where, if you go to a particular country, at the entry, you find SIM cards that you can use temporarily. But considering crime, and the threat of crime, extortions, and how cell phones and other methods of, modus operandi are being utilized in South Africa, surely we have to do things differently for us to bring confidence to the communities, as well as to get their cooperation whenever there is a call such as this to say, we provided with a free line, line so that we can be able to report that you suspect as an act of extortion.
Certainly. Professor Jacob Mofokeng, let me thank you for your time this afternoon, security analyst with the Tshwane University of Technology, as we continue our focus on extortion-related matters in the wake of that protest unfolding